Good day, everyone. This is Mike Roy of the Indignants. You can catch us on CHRW 94.9 FM in the London area or on Facebook. Today we are talking with Danny Panzella, who has been down several times to the Occupy Wall Street protests. Danny is an activist and journalist and also lives in the New York City area. So Danny, how did the Occupy Wall Street protests come about?
Well, I'm here just kind of in solidarity and covering it from my website, truthsquad.tv. How did it get started? There's several groups that are kind of loosely affiliated and kind of taking responsibility for the protest. Anonymous was one of them. But there is no real organization on the ground. It's done very democratically. Pretty much anybody who's willing to take part in the decision-making is allowed to take part in the decision-making. They take a lot of votes by raised hands, and basically the whole thing is run very grassroots democratically. That kind of works for and against them in a way. It's very difficult to get a consensus to get things done sometimes.
So do you see any similarities between the M15 and Indignants movement in Europe that we've seen over the summer?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It's definitely the same spirit that's sweeping across all these other countries. Absolutely. And, they stand in solidarity. Austerity is really starting to hit even in the United States. They just don't call it austerity. And I'm not just talking about cutting services. I'm talking about inflation, which is really like a hidden austerity. I'm talking about rising food prices. I'm talking about fuel costs, which basically everything to go up. So right here in New York City, we're experiencing high toll raises. They've just attempted to double the toll in New York City for all the bridges. So some of us are stuck on this island. If we don't have $15 every time we want to leave, we have to pay $15. Those are all austerity measures, and they're saying, we have to do this because the city's broke. But why is the city broke? Because Wall Street sold all these municipalities, these derivatives, and bankrupted everybody. So this was an intentional, and the reserve is just a small part. That's the American wing. But this is a global investment conspiracy where they're sucking every last bit of wealth out of the working and poorer classes, any bit of money that they have, and then denying them the services that they're paying for.
Yeah, Danny, I just watched one of your videos where the protesters came across people sipping champagne on a terrace in Wall Street. It seemed like an interesting moment. Can you tell us something about that?
Yeah, absolutely. That was 55 Wall Street, which is Cipriani. Now, Cipriani is an exclusive, very high-end Wall Street club. It's a restaurant, and the restaurant's open to the public. But we're talking the cream of the Wall Street crowd. So here you have a private party going on at Cipriani, and there's this terrace, and, if you look at the video, it's this Greek Revival-style building, and, it just had this very, this feel of, it reminded me, what must have been happening right before the fall of Rome, where the last of the oligarchs were kind of enjoying their wealth before it hit critical mass and just collapsed. So you have these Wall Street bankers kind of sipping champagne, out of these flute glasses on this terrace, overlooking these what they must have described as a ragamuffin group of protesters, angry about the opulence of Wall Street and how the rest of the 99% of the population is suffering at their pleasure. And I don't think many of these people really consciously understand what is happening. A lot of them, I'm sure many of them do. But this is just a corrupt system that these people have been raised in. Most of these people, it's a very, I use the word incestuous loosely, but, this class of people, they marry into each other's families. They keep the wealth within 1%. So, you've got this kind of where they have no perspective anymore. They grow up in this bubble, and they have no perspective of what it's like to live as a poor or middle-class person. And, I think that they laugh, and they don't understand when people are protesting. Sometimes I've heard people make comments that, oh, they just want stuff. They're socialists. They just want everything given to them. But that's really not the case. I mean, certainly there may be a small minority of socialists who just want freedom. And I actually personally don't advocate for a socialist system, but I can understand that these people are looking for a more fair distribution. They're railing against capitalism, but really what their problem is with the monopoly corporate capitalism.
I've noticed that there's a diverse cross-section of people like anarchists, anarcho-capitalists, libertarians, socialists, communists, and just regular folk. What do you think they have in common, all these people?
Well, I think they all recognize the problem, and one of the guys I interviewed, he was a free market libertarian, and he said it best. You know, we all see the same problem, and we may all disagree on the solution, but let's unify together to identify the problem, to expose it to the majority of people, and then we can go from there and hash out the solutions after. I mean, you know, whether you're a socialist or a free market guy or an anarchist, you can agree that ending the Federal Reserve and the monopoly corporate system is the first step to solving the problem.
Do you think the Federal Reserve Bank is more responsible than, say, Wall Street, or are they the same creature?
Well, the Fed is Wall Street. I mean, the Fed is owned by the top guys on Wall Street. You know, the top banks are the shareholders of the Fed. So you've got Chase, Citibank, Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan. You know, these are the guys that, when you say Wall Street, it's a euphemism for those that basically the top 10 or 15 banks. And those are the shareholders of the Federal Reserve. They're the guys that really run the show. You know, you've got the Federal Reserve Board, which is a federal agency, and that Federal Reserve Board is supposed to regulate the banks, but they don't. They stack that regulatory agency with executives from those banks. So how could they? They've given the foxes the keys to the hen house. So there is no regulation. And that goes with that's the same modus operandi they use, the same protocol they use for every industry. You know, the health industry is regulated by big pharma and drug company executives. So they use the same type of
revolving door, yeah.
It was the same revolving door for every regulatory agency. That's why it's really just a big joke.
So how many people were at the start of this, and how many are there now?
Well, on Saturday, we had, I would say, about 2,000 people. And now, during the week, it's been considerably less. I would say there's about 200 to 300 here. It fluctuates. When people get off work, a lot of people come down and join. You've got about 200 hardcore people that are here, sleeping here.
There were some arrests that I seen online. What happened with that?
Yeah, there have been several arrests. For the most part, from the people that I've interviewed, for the most part, the police are very cooperative and even sympathetic to what's happening here. I think a lot of them are feeling the effects of the Wall Street bailouts as well. And, you know, I think that they're very sympathetic. Every once in a while, seems like the NYPD has to come in and exercise its authority and just kind of remind the protesters that the NYPD is in charge. So they're allowing people to sleep in the park, which is illegal technically, but they are not allowing people to set up tents. So it's always a little bit of give and take. We'll let you stay here. You can't put up any tents. So, you know, you've always got somebody who gets a little too aggressive with the police or for the comfort level, and then they'll arrest them for something like disorderly conduct. A few people were arrested for chalking writing with chalk on the sidewalk, and they arrested them for vandalism. But it's really not an arrest, because what they do is, and I've had this happen to me, they take offenses that are really just violations. So they're going to write you a ticket. But what they do is they make a show. They put you in handcuffs, they put you in the car, they bring you down to the station. They make it as uncomfortable and inconvenient as possible. And then they just take you to the station, they write you a ticket, and they let you go. So they'll hold you for a few hours. That seems to be what they're doing for the most part, because, you know, riding on the sidewalk, vandalism is that's a violation. That's a ticket at best. Using a bullhorn. Somebody was arrested this morning for using a bullhorn. Again, it's a violation. It's a ticket. So they just kind of, it's this security theater where they go through the motion to basically, for the rest of the protesters to say, look, we're going to arrest you if you guys step too far out of line. There were a couple of people that were arrested for wearing masks. which is illegal. It's illegal to wear masks at political protests. One court decision, I wrote about this morning on truthbroad.tv, one court decision had ruled it is unconstitutional to deny people wearing masks, and then the new Supreme Court Justice, Sonia Sotomayor, ruled, she's a New York judge, she ruled, she overturned that decision and said, well, we have to balance free speech with, the police ability to provide security. So they see wearing masks as a security threat. Now, it's my opinion, and obviously the First Court, the Southern District Court's opinion, that wearing masks at a political rally is political speech, especially a Guy Fawkes mask. I mean, that's making a very specific political statement to wear that mask. So that's freedom of political expression, and that is constitutionally protected speech. Absolutely. And then they have the little loophole that says, oh, Halloween, you're okay because there's a masquerade loophole. So if it's for the purposes of entertainment, it's fine. So there were a few people that were arrested for that. And yesterday morning, they came in, and there were tarps. It was raining. There were tarps over some of the computer equipment, and the police told the occupants to remove the tarps, and they tried to reason with the cops and say, it's raining, we don't want the equipment, and the cops didn't want to hear it. They just started pulling the tarps off themselves, and some people tried to keep the tarps and kind of got into a tug of war with the tarps, and they ended up getting manhandled by arrested